Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your Champions League do or die preview for Manchester United against Bayern Munich. And before we get into all of this, and let's not forget there could have been injuries and all sorts that I'm not aware about in pricking that team, but what I am aware about is the permutations and the what ifs of how Manchester United qualify from this group, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy. At the moment, Bayern Munich are top and they will qualify, but it's the rest where it gets interesting. Copenhagen and Galatasaray are on 5 points. Manchester United are on 4 points. There is a possibility that we could draw and still be completely out of Europe. There is a possibility that if we win, we'll still be in the Europa League. Part of that is to do with VAR. Part of it is to do with ourselves. Of course, Copenhagen play Galatasaray. If they win, they'll go through to the Champions League knockout stage with Bayern Munich. If Galatasaray win, they will go through to the qualification of the Champions League with Bayern Munich. So we need Copenhagen to draw with Galatasaray, and we need to beat Bayern Munich if we want to stay in the Champions League. That is the only way we can do it. Draw Copenhagen, Galatasaray, we beat Bayern Munich, we go through. It's unlikely. It's very, very unlikely. But there's another scenario as well. What if we draw? Will we go into the Europa League? Well, only if Copenhagen win. If Copenhagen win, if Galatasaray, see, even I'm getting confused. If Galatasaray win, they go through with Bayern Munich, leaving Copenhagen on 5 points. If we draw with Bayern Munich, we go up to 5 points and would be level with Copenhagen. So it comes down to head-to-head. So this scenario is Galatasaray beat Copenhagen, we draw with Bayern Munich, we end up on 5 points in third place, joint with Copenhagen. Points tallied in meetings between them. They beat us, we beat them. Goal difference in matches between them. Well, we beat them 1-0. They beat us 4-3. So that's exactly the same. Goals scored in matches between them. We've both scored 4. Away goals scored in matches between them. We would go through because we got more away goals. Unless point 3 is in fact goals scored in matches between them, they scored more. I don't know. You know, actually, even myself, I don't know. I think if we're level with Copenhagen, we go through. I think. But ultimately, if we don't win, we're fucking out of Europe, aren't we? We've got to win, and even if we win, we probably end up in the Europa League. It's a bloody mess. I think there's a scenario, if we draw, we can go through, as long as it's not a head-to-head with Galatasaray, because obviously they scored a lot more goals than us when they beat us. But, yeah, a goal difference goes in their favour. But it's a bloody mess. It's a mess. And the interesting thing is, if Copenhagen hadn't got a draw against Bayern Munich and VAR had given that handball for Bayern Munich in stoppage time, then we'd probably have a very good chance if we go through of beating Bayern Munich. But it's a bloody mess, and I think the Premier League action has probably taken us away from this. But bottom line is, if we beat Bayern Munich, we'll probably still end up in the Europa League, because beating Bayern Munich's one thing, but getting a draw between Copenhagen and Galatasaray, I just can't see it. I can't see it. And we've only got ourselves to blame. We have only got ourselves to blame. And I think the Premier League and the Champions League, some people might say it's in tandem. I think for me, the Champions League dismissal is squarely on the shoulders of a certain goalkeeper. And I hate to say that. You don't want to individualise it, but the mistakes he's made in this tournament, I mean, there's 4 or 5 goals there that you just can't concede. You can't be going away and scoring 3 goals in Turkey, 3 goals in Denmark, and 3 goals in Germany, and losing games and drawing games. It is about the defence, and it is predominantly about an honour, but it is where we are. We shouldn't be losing at home to Galatasaray either. You got to look at that as well. So beating Bayern Munich, I wouldn't be surprised if we played well against Bayern Munich. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a result, but we have to be realistic that it probably won't be enough if we do, unless we're really lucky and Copenhagen and Galatasaray draw. So that's the sense. If we win, we still need Copenhagen and Galatasaray to draw. If we win and they don't, then we'll probably end up in the Europa League. So even with a win, it could be Thursday night football. I mean, I will say this as well. There'll be plenty of you in the comments saying, well, I don't care, Mark. I don't really care. I don't want to be in Europe at all. This is catastrophic for Sir Jim Radcliffe, and this is catastrophic for Manchester United, and this is catastrophic for Ten Hag. If we're not in Europe, the money is gone. There is no money. You know, at least if you're in Thursday night football, you're earning some money. We need to earn some money, as we know. Anyway, how would you line up for this game? This is how I would line up. I'm not convinced it's the way that Ten Hag will line up. We know Bayern Munich got stuffed at the weekend by Frankfurt, and they put quite a strong side out. You know, the Harry Kanes were playing, the Kimmichs. They had a strong team, and they got beat 5-1. So Bayern Munich are a funny team. And whilst many people, myself included, would look at Bayern Munich and say they're good enough to compete to be Champions League winners, they do have this vulnerability about them that doesn't make sense. So I think with 75,000 fans and a United side that's up for it, we can get a result. And I expect United, in their classic inconsistency, to turn up and put a performance in. I really do. I think it's classic United over the last 10 years to go and put in a performance when we think they won't. So I think we will do. Maybe we won't win, maybe it'll be a draw, but I do expect us to go and get a performance, and that is why I think he's got to make changes. I think that the big thing for me is to bring Varane back in. I know there's been a fallout, and I suspect Varane has probably, overstepped the mark. And people will say, well, maybe he's rightly done that. You should never overstep the mark against the manager. The manager is there to manage. You've got to respect the manager. But being a foreign player, this has not been leaked out there and etc. So, Varane is on the bench, and I think that Ten Hag has to swallow that now and put him into the team. Whether he's going to leave in January or not, you've got to put Varane in the team because you've got to put Luke Shaw at left back. Now, he could play Lindelof, but Lindelof wasn't even fit at the weekend. So Varane has to play. You're playing against Harry Kane. Harry Maguire's used to playing against Harry Kane and training with Harry Kane for England. So I think Maguire and Varane works. Dalot works well with Anthony, so I'd stick with him. You could bring Wan-Bissaka in if you want to, but I think Dalot works well with Anthony. We want to attack. Luke Shaw's our best attacking fullback. I think in the midfield, you've got to get rid of this McTominay vibe. I don't think he necessarily will. In fact, I think McTominay will start. I think it's one of the big problems with Erik Ten Hag. I wish we could just remove that part of his brain that thinks that McTominay is the answer, because I really think that would massively improve United. I think we need stability. I think you've got to go with Mainu and Amrabat with Bruno ahead of him, ahead of them. McTominay can't do that. And if you pick McTominay, he's going to be wandering around the edge of the box, the same as Bruno, and whoever's the holding midfielder will get overwhelmed. And you need two. You desperately need two. So I would go Mainu, Amrabat with Bruno ahead of them. Put the electric shock in Bruno's pants, and if he wanders out of position, he just gets a little shock. Keep him around that number 10 area, so everybody knows where he is. As Scholesy said a couple of weeks ago, I wouldn't know where Bruno was on the pitch if I was a midfielder. We need him to be in his area. And then the front three for me picks itself. Garnacho, Højlund and Anthony. They played very, very well in the press against Chelsea last week. I think putting Martial in there at the weekend impacted Garnacho and Anthony, and I don't think either of them should be dropped because we didn't start Højlund at the weekend. I would go with that front three. It worked really, really well against Chelsea, and I think if you resist the temptation to bring Rashford back, it'll work again. I fear McTominay will start in the midfield, and I fear he will start Rashford instead of Garnacho. I just have got a feeling he will do it, and I think it's a massive mistake to do that. I think that's just doing it on ego and not on performance and not on suitability and not on what's best for the team. And I think that team really is the best team that Erik Ten Hag can put out. But I suspect we will see this. And that worries me because straight away, Rashford's not been good this season. Rashford is about Rashford, and if he's on his game, that's fantastic. But if he's not on his game, he's not really part of a system that can press well. He's more of an individual flair player, and when it works, but I wouldn't start with it. I think for that first half an hour, we want to get hold of the game. We want to get high up the pitch. We want to put them under pressure. We want to get the crowd going. And I think that's the best team he can do to do that. You put McTominay in there, you're almost down to 10 men. You put Rashford in there. If he's not up for it, you're down to 9 men. You start Martial, you're down to 8 men. You put Luke Shaw at centre-back and you've got Reguilon at left-back. That weakens you there. I think he's got to go as strong as he can. Look, Liverpool for me is a write-off at the weekend. I saw somebody in the chat saying, I'd rather focus on the Liverpool game. We're screwed in Europe. I think that Liverpool game's a write-off. Any positive we get from Liverpool is a bonus. I'm not expecting anything from that, but I still think in Europe, there's an opportunity to earn money. There's an opportunity to put a statement performance out and show that we can play good football against good teams. And I think that this is what we showed against Chelsea in part. and what we can do against Bayern Munich as well. So look, that's the team I would go with. I don't think he will. I really don't think he will. I think it will be a little bit different. Maybe McTominay will play, maybe Rashford will start. But I still think whatever team he puts out, there is a high possibility that we do get a strong result, because the message to the players is very simple. You're not playing for the fans. You may think you're not playing for the manager, but you're not playing for the fans, and the fans are switched on to this. So if you want to go into the theatre dreams again and get booed and shouted at because you're not putting in effort, then, you know, you're very, very brave to do that twice in a few days. And I don't think they will do that. I think it will be a kick up the arse. I think part of the problem with Manchester United is inconsistency, and we tend to be inconsistent against the West Broms, as I mentioned, under Mourinho, the Norwiches with Van Gaal, the Watfords and the Leicesters under Ollie, the Brentfords and the Bournemouths with Ten Hag. Man United players tend to just not be switched on in the games where they think that they're too good. The games that they do tend to get switched on are these bigger games. And obviously sometimes there's a skill gap, as we saw at Liverpool and as we've seen with Man City, but we do tend to go and put in performances against the better sides. And I demand them to do it against Bayern Munich tomorrow night, because the fans deserve it. We don't deserve Europa League football. We don't deserve no European football. I mean, can you imagine how depressing it will be next season if we've got no European football? We're not in the Carabao Cup. We're nowhere near getting in top four, I don't think. And, you know, FA Cup and shitty Premier League games for the rest of the season. It's the only FA Cup left. The one thing about the Europa League thing is I think if we do drop into the Europa League, at least we've got a chance of winning it, and might be our best chance of getting into the Champions League next year. We've got to be in the Champions League next year. We're not going to win it this year, but we've got to be in the Champions League next year. And at least if we beat Bayern Munich, and I might be in the minority here, but if we beat Bayern Munich tomorrow, then we will be in Europe. There's no way that we can't not be in Europe if we beat Bayern Munich tomorrow, because we'll either be third or second, and that's what we've got to do. We can't be thinking about Copenhagen and Galatasaray, but we've got to be in Europe in February. I know a lot of you don't want to play Thursday night football. I don't want to play Thursday night football, but I think that's petulance. I think it's spoilt behaviour. We need the money, and I don't want to be about the money, but we need the money. And secondary to that, I think when February comes around, you will regret saying, I wish we'd got knocked out of Europe altogether. Because I sort of understand it and get in the comments, but for those people who say you don't want to be in Europe altogether, why? It's a bit like saying, sack Ten Hag, what's your alternative? Why don't you want to be in Europe altogether? Oh, I don't want to be in the Europa League, I don't want to do Thursday night football. Yeah, okay. I want to focus on top four. Okay, what if we're nowhere near top four come February? The Europa League will be an opportunity to get into the Champions League a different route. And if we're not in the top 4 or 5, we're not in the Champions League anyway. So we can't close it off. And the club will not want it to be closed off because they'll want the money. I want the money because I want us to spend it. And I know that if we don't qualify, there'll be people saying within the club, that's cost us 30, 40 million. You know, we're going to have to tighten our belts in the summer. These things are coming down the road. So European qualification for the Champions League is obviously massive, but if we don't get that, then I would, without a shadow of a doubt, take Thursday night football. As much as I hate it, beggars can't be choosers, and I don't think we can be out of Europe altogether. We need to be competing for that Champions League spot, because it's a new Champions League format next season with more money at stake, more status at stake, and we can't afford not to be in it. And also, for those people who don't want to play Thursday night football in February, remember, there's a high chance we'll be playing Thursday night football next season anyway, because we'll probably finish in the Europa League or the Conference League spots in the league. So do you want Thursday night football all of next season, or do you want Thursday night football in February till May with a chance that we get in the Champions League and avoid it next year? I think we've just got to be a little bit mature about this. I get it. I really, really get it. I get the frustration. I get the petulance. I get the screw Thursday night football, I don't want to be in Europe anyway. But that's a reaction to how disappointing we've been in Europe so far and crashing out the Champions League again. But it's not the first time we've crashed out the Champions League before Christmas. Again, I'll go back to what I said on the show yesterday morning. Controversial or not, this is what we do. We don't always qualify for the Champions League in the for August. And when we do, I think this would be the third time that we've crashed out of the Champions League before Christmas. I'm pretty sure Mourinho did it once. Van Gaal definitely did it once. I'm not sure whether Ollie did it once as well. Probably did. Not 100% sure. Did he do it the season he got sacked with Ranić? I can't remember. But look, it happens. It does happen. And it's a bit like that Bournemouth result at the weekend. It's not an isolated incident. It happens a lot with United. We lose these games and we crash out of Europe and we don't qualify for the top four. So, but back to the Bayern Munich game. There's lots of permutations, like I said. There's lots of if, buts, or maybe. But we've got to win this game. That we have to win this game. If we draw, I think we'll be out of Europe altogether. So we've put ourselves in a position where we've got to win. And it makes me sick. It does make me sick. I mean, the Galatasaray game at home, I don't know how we lost it. The Galatasaray game away, I don't know how we drew it. I mean, literally 2 clangers by Onana. Just unbelievable. But we are in this situation now where we've got to win. And let's hope there's no more mistakes at the back or by the goalkeeper, because we could score 3 goals and still not win again. We've just got to win this game. Win the game and then see where we are. I don't think we can get our heads lost or locked into what we need here, there, or whatever. If we win, we're still in Europe in some shape or form. If we get really lucky, then we may still be in the Champions League. But win is what I think we need to do. And win is what I expect and demand we do. I think it's what the players owe everybody. Regardless of where you are with the manager or the future of the club or the sale of the club, winning this game is what we need to do. Get your comments in below. Get your predictions in below. I'll speak to you on the next one. Smash a like on the video and get your comments in. Thanks for watching.